Okay, now we are truly on the road. Karibu to the program. My name is Victor Lo. On this 23rd day of August 2023, we have got so much lined up for you. Of course, next month is World Climate Day, World Climate Summit that will be happening here in Kenya. And there's a lot of discussion around that particular summit that Kenya will be proud to host, and President William Ruto will be in attendance. Remember, he's been championing about planting of trees and enhancing the cover, the vegetation, and our environment in general. And today I see Regina is dressed in green, clearly representing. Regina, Vivian, good morning.
Good morning to you, Victor. And yes, we are the official broadcasters for the Africa Climate Summit that is set for next month, running from 4th all the way to the 6th of September. And the conversation, those who are in this particular value chain, it looks as if we have gone back to the Kyoto Protocol that sets pace when it comes to matters of climate change, having all the 147 member states who penned the agreement there coming together and looking at, the achievements as well as the bottlenecks that have held back, the countries from achieving this. We are looking at, carbon emissions. Why is still Africa suffering the brunt of high carbon emissions, yet it only contributes 4%? So that's a conversation that, Africa has been driving and saying that, the most industrialized states need to contribute more to clean up the environment or cut their carbon emissions. But good thing, Victor, is did you know that anything green, I'm talking about the kales in your backyard, I'm talking about maybe the tomatoes also in your backyard, or even coffee plantations, tea plantations, think sugar cane plantations can earn you on the carbon stock market. Did you know that? Yes, anything green can earn you money. Question is, how do you translate or how do you trade in carbon stocks? That's a conversation that you're going to be putting into perspective for you, Victor, and the rest of our audience as we customize our broadcast towards matters of climate change.
Vivian, right. Did you hear that?
I just had that, and I'm looking for ways. How do I do that? How do I make sure I monetize that, as Regina has just mentioned? And Victor will later on be having a conversation on the African Climate Summit, as the reps of this particular summit will be right here in studio later on in the bulletin. And I will be having a very, very interesting conversation. This is a conversation that we must have, considering what we have been seeing happen in churches, the massacre that we just experienced in Shakahola. I mean, this is a topic that we have to talk about, and the topic is on church and cultism. How do you differentiate between religion and cultism? I will be joined by Apostle Ndura Waruenge, who is an ex-Mungeki member. He was actually the national coordinator for the cult group, because Mungiki is also a cult, but he has transformed, he has reformed, and is now an apostle. We will be getting deeper into that conversation with him later on in the show. As for now, how about we get into what has been happening in the news with Regina?
Thank you very much, Vivian, for that. And I so wish that Ramaguko, who is also a pastor, would have been in on this particular program to just give us his view, in regard to matters of religion and occultism, given, as you've put it, something that we're still reeling from, and that is the Shakahola menace. But now let's bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 12 hours. And we start off to why Kenya continues to make headlines in the sporting arena, and this is through none other than Faith Kipyegon. Two-time Olympic champion Faith Kipyegon will take to the field, and she did, and came out on top when it comes to the 1,500 meters race yesterday. Let's just bring you up to speed with what happened yesterday at Budapest, Hungary. Just to inform you that our website is open for your perusal, and if you've not already sent in your congratulatory messages there to Faith Kipyegon. Well, you need to, and she is on social media there. And I'd want to look at just bring you up to speed with what people are saying on ground. Faith Kipyegon now is proverbially the GOAT, the greatest of all times. And this is after she dashed to victory, securing Kenya's first gold in Budapest with a remarkable time of 3 hours, 54 minutes and 87 seconds there in the 1500 meters race there, claiming her third World Athletics Championship gold. Further details are available on our website, and KBC Channel 1 is broadcasting those particular races that are currently taking place in Budapest, Hungary there. So do keep it right here. If you want to get in touch with us, our Twitter handle is also very much open at KBC Channel 1. You can peruse through our website. We have the schedule there for you on the races to expect today, which happens to be day 5 of this particular competition. Now we go back to matters of health, where 5 people have lost their lives in Migori County after being infected with cholera. Confirming the incident, the Migori County Health CEC Julius Awor Nyerere has said the deceased had failed to seek prompt medical attention after contracting the disease. Nyerere says the Lake region remains susceptible to cholera, urging locals to observe all health protocols to avoid contracting the virus.
They have overstayed with the disease for long. Cholera, you know, when you diarrhea and you vomit, you become dehydrated so fast. So we want everybody to be enlightened on that. Our team is already on the ground teaching people on the symptoms of the disease. We are not yet off the hook because the rains have not started, so that we get clean water in our places of.
The National Drought Management Authority, NDMA, has affirmed that Taita Taveta could still be facing effects of the ravaging drought. Appearing before the National Assembly's Regional Development Committee, NDMA CEO Hared Aidan said that the authority has boots on ground monitoring the situation. And Abdiaziz Hashim reports 22 more counties are under the radar, despite various parts of the country experiencing the short rains.
Kaunti ya Turkana ni mojawapo za kaunti ambazo zinakabiliana na kiangazi. Ukosefu wa mvua umewalazimu wakazi
We do apologize for that audio mix-up there. Clearly, it was meant to be in English, and the details are still available on our website. Now we cross over to Parliament, where government has asked Parliament to approve the writing off of all debts owed by public sugar companies. Debts include commodity funds amounting to more than 65.7 billion shillings and tax penalties and interest estimated to be more than 50.1 billion shillings as of 30th, 2023. In a memorandum to Parliament, the National Treasury has also sought approval on the vacation of the privatization model, as well as the leasing model for Nzoia, Chemilil, Miwani, Muhoroni and South Nyanza sugar companies. Legislators hailed the move as saying it paves way for the revival of giant sugar mills.
Government and its anti-corruption efforts.
This amendment may actually neutralize some form of deterrent to the law the way we understand it right now. Thus, it might have the effect of, one, undermining the corruption efforts under the framework as we understand it now.
Wadau wote zikiwemo tume ya EACC, afisi ya mkurugenzi wa mashtaka ya umma.
On that note, we'll be taking a quick break, but when we're back, we're going to be bringing you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines across the business world as well as the sporting arena. So do stay here with us.
Aya, sako kombako, molumbe bas atidro in a competition.
Date, right? Hey, Amaro. Did that object just call you by name?
Does your boyfriend call you by your sister's name? Of course he knows my name. Kagwat, you are a kagwat.
Atidro is too lazy to talk to a lady without flaunting his khakis.
Wait, Bosira, are you trying to say that you can talk to ladies better than Atidro?
I am not convinced this is witchcraft. How can this switch off the light and she has not got enough from here? In you, Chawi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a competition.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe. Mtoto wa kiume ndiye anapewa kipaumbele kwenda kufundishwa. Ama tuseme wazazi wakipata angalau pesa kidogo, watataka kumfunza mtoto wa kiume
kwa kuwa mtoto wa kiume anaonekana kuwa yeye mwenyewe anaweza na ana uwezo wa kutatua shida zake.
Unapata kuwa takwimu katika kutoka magereza zetu zinaonyesha kuwa waliofungwa pale wengi ni watoto wa kiume 25,700.
Nipenda kwa hiari, niwe wake wa ndoani, kafika kuniajiri.
Sanaa ya Kiswahili, pale ambapo tunapiga mbizi na makafi katika bahari ya kuelimishana, tusemezane, tuchangamshane na tupashane.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Wiki hii kwenye mkulima. Hata shamba lako liwe dogo, bado utapata mapato mazuri. Karoti huchukua muda mfupi kuwa tayari ikilinganishwa na mimea mingine kama vile mahindi na kahawa. Alafu
kisha wakulima wengi hawajui kwamba wadudu wengi ambao tuko nao ambao wanatusumbua kwenye mashamba zetu nyingi zinakuwa attracted na color. Kwa mfano hiyo color yellow ina attract zile white flies.
Basi usikose kujiunga nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1.
I am the author of A Child with a Vision. I want to change 1 billion children in the world. I have a vision to help the needy and orphans. I started writing when I was 10 years old.
Once, there was a kingdom ruled by a kind king. But the king had only one eye and one leg.
Chester cheetah.
Today I'm going to show you guys on how to make burgers just at the comfort of your home.
Utengano saulike, umoja tushapata. Vipaji tuvikuzeni, Mola katutumikia.
But I'm a patient man and understand. I wanna know what is your plan. Must I wait and for how long? I am waiting for your love. You're playing silly games.
We could never make it. We don't you, me, could never make it. We don't you, we could never make it without you. Make it without you. Wash for you. Make up your bed and clean your house for you. Press your clothes for you. Spend my money for you. Accept your baby mother and your big me too. Because forever I'm leaving you. You never should have made me cry. I'm forever I'm leaving.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe. Mtoto wa kiume ndiye anapewa kipaumbele kwenda kufundishwa. Ama tuseme wazazi wakipata angalau pesa kidogo, watataka kumfunza mtoto wa kiume
kwa kuwa mtoto wa kiume anaonekana kuwa yeye mwenyewe anaweza na ana uwezo wa kutatua shida zake.
Unapata kuwa takwimu katika kutoka magereza zetu zinaonyesha kuwa waliofungwa pale wengi ni watoto wa kiume 25,700.
Nipenda kwa hiari, niwe wake wa ndoani, kafika kuniajiri.
Sanaa ya Kiswahili, pale ambapo tunapiga mbizi na makafi katika bahari ya kuelimishana, tusemezane, tuchangamshane na tupashane.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Ingo FM fans in Kakamega, are you ready? Ingo FM and Y254 have organized a Meet the Fans tour on 25th and 26th August 2023. On Friday, 25th August, join us at Butere Boys High School, where the Baraza Foundation has organized sports activities including a football match pitting Kakamega Homeboys versus Butere combined. In the evening, join us as we witness the crowning of Mr. and Miss Butere live from Charlie 037 Resort. These events will be covered by Y254 and Ingo FM. On Saturday, 26th August, our team shall visit Noah Yale Children's Home, where we shall donate dignity packs. And the climax of our Kakamega tour will be the launch of Ingo FM Mashabi Club at Bondeni Primary School. Don't miss out. All are welcome.
Good morning. You're still watching in the headlines. Now, President William Ruto has ordered the transfer of the Amboseli National Park to Kajiado County Government from the Kenya World Service. This comes after governors from the Ma community made a fresh plea to the head of state to return the management of the park to the county.
Day 2 of the Ma Cultural Week and thousands thronged the Masai Mara National Reserve in Narok County. A myriad of activities taking place, including song and dance from various communities, showcasing of the Ma cuisine, artwork, regalia, among other aspects of culture. President William Ruto, who graced the event, hailing the Ma community for preserving culture and protecting wildlife, which they have coexisted peacefully with for years.
Mila na desturi na tradition ya jamii ya Wamasai imekuwa identity ya taifa letu la Kenya.
It is here that the head of state granted a 50-year-old wish of the community by returning the Amboseli National Park to the Kajiado County administration.
Kwa sababu ile shamba ilikuwa ni trust land ya jamii ya Wamasai, pia basi ile Amboseli ifanyike isimamiwe na county ya Kajiado.
He added that the acreage of the conservancy will be expanded and henceforth game parks will be sharing revenue with host counties.
Hizo game parks, ile mapato inapatikana pale, nimesema mapato inayopatikana igawanywe kati ya county government na national government 50%.
President Ruto further said his administration aims to employ about 600 wardens living within the ecosystem of the game parks and game reserves.
Tutaajiri game wardens, wale wanatusaidia kujunga wanyama wetu, wengine 1,500 ambao tutawaajiri hivi sasa. Na nimesema kwa hawa 1,500, 40% ambaye ni karibu 600 ya hawa game wardens watoke kwa zile counties ambao game reserves na game parks iko huko kwao.
As part of festivities celebrating the Ma Cultural Week, President Ruto handed over UNESCO Intangible Rights of Passage certificates to Governors Patrick Olentutu of Narok, Joseph Olelenku of Kajiado, and Lati Lelelit of Samburu, in addition to launching the Van Mara brand strategy and presiding over a cattle auction where he bought 7 heifers worth 2 million shillings.
1.15 million mara ya kwanza.
Reporting for KBC Channel 1 News from Narok County, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
The steer, the big one, mara ya kwanza.
Indeed, if you do not own a Masai shuka, then definitely you're not in Kenya or Kenyan. Somewhere, or even those bracelets, that have those beads that have the colors, the Kenyan flag and such. This is just part of items that we are, custom making for ourselves, that we've borrowed heavily from the Ma community. It's good to celebrate what makes us unique there. Now, the government is set to kick off a 3-phased polio vaccination drive targeting 7.4 million children in the country. Health Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni says the inoculation is geared towards curbing a further spread of the virus, which has already hospitalized 6 children at the Hagadera refugee camp in Garissa County.
Kicking and keeping polio out of the country has been one of the most delicate balancing acts for Kenya in recent years. The government says 20% of children born annually are not vaccinated, hence propelling the outbreak.
We have about 1.5 births that happen every year, and 80% of these births are immunized and vaccinated. But we still have the 20% that is remaining, and that is where why we are campaigning, so that the parents can take this, and parents, relatives, and even caregivers to take this initiative very, very important.
6 children are currently hospitalized in Garissa County, having contracted the life-changing disease.
Cases that we have identified in some of the counties, of course, will be admitted in a separate place to avoid contamination with other people and the spread of the same.
The government will on 24th August embark on a 3-phased polio vaccination drive in the country to curb the spread of the disease. Health stakeholders have called on the government to partner with neighboring countries to tackle the disease.
I'm pleased to join many of the partners in the room around micro-planning, and specifically that the response being planned here in Kenya to increase polio vaccination coverage.
We also need to collaborate with all our neighbors, Somalia, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. You could see from the maps that they all have outbreaks as well.
Kenya has so far received approximately 2.5 million doses of the vaccine, with the second and third phases expected to take place in September and October.
Kick polio out of Kenya. This is the message to all parents and caregivers across the countries who have been asked to avail their children for the ongoing polio vaccine. Reporting for KBC Channel 1, I am Kasichana Masha.
Now, concern is rife over the number of young women and boys abusing drugs in the country. According to NACADA, 18.4% of students are abusing drugs, with boys accounting for 11.7% of this demographic. Now, the number of those on the medical assistance for injecting drugs has also leaped from 45% in 2015, actually 45 persons from 2015 to 8,557 in 2022. The prevailing situation has contributed to an increase in HIV/AIDS infections, especially among those sharing needles. The rise in these numbers has been highly attributed to the negligence of the boy child in society.
The drug and substance abuse menace among young people in the country is on the rise. According to the National Syndemic Disease Control Council, the number of those receiving medically assisted therapy for injecting drugs increased at an alarming rate between 2015 and 2022.
2015, we had about 45 people tulikuwa tunapea dawa ile mtaelezewa ya kuwasaidia kuacha utumiaji wa madawa ya kujidunga. By 2022, we have about 8,557.
The trend has subsequently fueled HIV and AIDS infections as drug abusers tend to share needles.
Wakati wanaenda kujidunga, wengi wao kwa sababu ya kuogopa kujidunga nyumbani, wanajidunga kwa vitu tunaita deni. Wakienda pale, wanachukua shindano moja, wanatumia, wanapeana. Kuna saa zingine pia kikiumana sana, pesa zikikosekana, moja anachukua damu ya mwingine, anachukua ule akonayo kidogo, amelewa kidogo, anaomba mwingine, anaitumia kumix.
Most affected by these menaces is the boy child, with most of them dropping out of school and engaging in crime. To remedy the situation, the National Syndemic Disease Control Council is calling for early intervention measures upon realization of addiction symptoms.
It takes 25 years for us to fully mature our brains. So you can imagine if you're taking substances as early as 13, 12. What are we doing to that developing brain? It has more negative impact.
But my purpose in life is actually just to get each and every boy child to stop drugs and just come back to being a good life, because I was also given a second chance as a person.
In the year 2007, I started this journey of recovery, and today I count around 15 years and some 11 months without the use of substance use disorder.
And I feel like young men, and especially the ones who are struggling with alcohol and substance abuse, it's not because they like it, but it's because of the challenges they might face.
The society, starting at the family unit, has also been challenged to take up its mentorship role to nip the crisis in the bud.
That you also have to whistle-blow on the big boys who are selling you these drugs. The ones who are making you drug vendors, please, let us know who they are. We also have other big boys in our houses. We will use them to make sure the other big boys are behind bars.
Nancy Okware, Good Morning Kenya. That is Pastor Dorcas Rigadi there saying that, we have other big boys in the house who can deal with that menace well. That's a rhetoric. Now to business. A group of women in Kisumu County have established a community seed bank to preserve indigenous seeds. The indigenous seeds say that are more nutritious and resistant to pests and diseases, reducing the use of synthetic fertilizer and other chemicals.
The problem we are having now in the country, and especially with the issue of GMO. GMO is out of ignorant leaders peddling information that is not factual, that is not supported by science. And if you were to listen to the scientists, and even if we want them to be very, very bare with the facts, and whenever anybody was more than to go anywhere in the world, outside Kenya, go to America, China, India, those countries with the largest populations, ask yourself, what do they feed your people with? You have also even find the opposition in Linda, ignorantly speaking about GMO and telling the country that if you take GMO as a man, utamia matiti. If you take GMO, itakuwa hivi na hivi. That is all lies.
The government has advised young entrepreneurs and startups to mobilize resources from incubators, hubs, accelerators, and tech bootcamp service providers to navigate against the current economic hardship. Speaking during the launch of the Kenya Industry and Entrepreneurship Project, Strengthening Kenya's Innovation Ecosystem Program, the Principal Secretary for Industry, Dr. Juma Mkhwana, said interventions combined with high-tech skills will enable startups access capital for expansion.
That is what we need. That we have a lot of young people, and you don't even need a degree, you don't need a diploma. You just need this small program in cybersecurity, in networking, in software development, Python, whatever they call them, and it gives them the confidence, the skills to play at the global level. Because tech skills are not for Kenya. Tech skills are for the world. But the challenge, as you all know, is that Kenya is very good at creating new firms, but it has not been able to move them up, scale them up. That's where I think the block is. And the KIEP, one of its focus is trying to do that.
Back to sports, where 800 meters record holder David Rudisha says he might venture into masters competition or coaching after recurrent injuries hindered him from returning to the races. Rudisha, who was speaking at the sidelines of the World Athletics Championship in Budapest, Hungary, says he's not retiring soon from active running.
World 800 meters record holder David Rudisha says he will not retire soon from athletics and he might venture into coaching or masters competitions due to a recurrent injury he sustained in 2017.
Bado mimi sijasema nimestaafu na mbio naweza rudi kwa kiwango ingine tofauti, hata kuna mbio ya masters. So bado sija announce my retirement.
Rudisha, who is one of 3 ambassadors appointed for the World Athletics Championships in Budapest, Hungary, won 2 gold medals at the World Championships in 2011 in Daegu and in 2015 in Beijing.
Nafurahia because kwamba tuko na vijana ambaye wanakimbia saizi na wameshikilia 800 vizuri sana.
His 800 meters world record time of 1 minute 40.91 seconds has stood for over 10 years since the 2012 Olympic Games in London.
Na leo hapa tuko katika hii michezo hapa hivi Budapest, tuna matarajio makubwa kwamba vijana pia watafanya vizuri. So kwa ufupi kwamba hata ile pengo ambayo niliwacha naona vijana wanashikilia vizuri na hiyo ni furaha yangu pia.
He says he is happy to see budding athletes like world and Olympic champion Emmanuel Korir performing well in the 2-lap race.
Athletics Kenya President Jack Tuwei has called for concerted efforts in the fight against environmental degradation. Tuwei, who was speaking during the Kenya Day held at the Green Park Zone at the World Athletic Championship in Hungary, said 70% of athletes all over the world have raised serious concerns on climate change.
Athletics Kenya was the first World Athletics member federation to sign the United Nations on Climate Change and was the only athletics federation to be honored at the ongoing World Athletics Championships in Budapest.
Our sportsmen and women cannot produce their best if the air quality is not good, if there is pollution, if there is rain, if there are storms and so forth and so on. They cannot break world records. So we need to give them the best conditions so that they can produce the best of their ability.
Tulichukua hiyo fursa kushughulikia mambo ya mazingira kwa sababu kukiwa na joto, kukiwa na mvua, kukiwa na kivumbi, namna yote ile inafanya wanariadha wasifanye michezo vizuri na pia sasa inakuwa ni vigumu saa zingine michezo inakosa kufanyika.
World Athletics and the local organizing committee created a green zone in the National Athletics Stadium Park here in Budapest to host awareness raising activities as part of their sustainability efforts at the World Athletics Championships in Hungary.
To federations, not everyone's ready to make those kind of commitments, and we understand. That's why we were really proud of Athletics Kenya when we invited them to become the first signatory to the UN Sport for Climate Action Framework. When they accepted, because it does mean a commitment. It doesn't mean doing things. It means doing things differently than you're used to. It means looking at the events you put on in a whole different kind of way.
Shows that climate change or the effects of climate change is not only a docket for environmentalists or even the government, but it goes beyond. And it has reached the world of sports. And what this tells us is that collaboration, partnership, is what will help us tackle climate change.
In a bid to fight environmental pollution, Athletics Kenya has installed sensors to measure air quality at various stadiums in the country, including Kasarani, Nyayo, Nakuru Athletic Club, and Lobo in Eldoret. Kennedy Ilangat, KBC Sports, Budapest, Hungary.
Then as we cap it this morning on In the Headlines, just want to say congratulations once again to Faith Kipyegon, who won Kenya's first gold in Budapest with a remarkable time of 3 hours, 54 minutes and 87.87 there in the 1500 meters, claiming her third World Athletics Championship gold. The schedule for today's races and games that KBC is televising for you live is available on our website. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you pleasant viewing and Asha, Victor and Vivian to take you through what the various dailies have captured for you. Have a good one.
to the program. Now it's 7 minutes past 7 in the morning. Let me take you through, together with Vivian, we are going to take you through the front
Did you
pages
just call
of
me
our...
the Vivian?
Sorry?
Did you say the Vivian?
Degwa. Together.
I'm just kidding with you.
Okay. Okay, you got me flat-footed there for like a second. Okay. On the front page of our local dailies, let me start with the Star newspaper. MPs gang up to oppose Ruto's varsity funding. MPs gang up to oppose Ruto's varsity funding. There are concerns that the new financing model may put unrealistic burden on parents and disadvantaged students from poor families. There are concerns that the new financing model may put unrealistic burden on parents and disadvantaged students from poor families, and that is the story here on the front page of the Star newspaper. It's been a debate that has been going for a couple of weeks now, ever since the new funding model was launched, and the president spoke about it, that it was going to favor almost everyone. But then now MPs now gang up to oppose Ruto's varsity funding. I'll get you more details shortly on that. Why Youth and Sports CS Ababu Namwamba is a man under siege. He will be appearing before the legislators today to explain what is happening to the world of sports, more so in the country. That is the Sports and Youth Ministry. It's also captured, I believe it's also captured in that newspaper. Or,
yes, it is.
Yes, on the Standard. And still on the Standard, just before I go on the front page of the Star, that in the hot seat, CS Ababu to face MPs on claims. A lot of fire coming on his side. We'll be waiting to see what he has to say. Of course, the MP said that he's been snubbing the summons to appear before the MPs to answer to queries. So now, storm in Parliament over Ruto's funding model for universities. This is the story that is fleshed here on page 4 and page 5. A complete pullout, and in a rare show of unity, the lawmakers put aside their political differences and demanded the government suspend the system, at least for students joining the institutions in September. And now Ruto launched the University and Technical and Vocational Education and Training Institutions funding model last month. The president lauded the model, saying that it will ensure students from the poorest backgrounds get access to higher education and pull public universities out of deep debts. But during heated debate in Parliament, MPs warned that thousands of poor students risked being locked out due to bureaucracies brought about by the system. They said will increase the fees burden to parents. That is as far as this is concerned. So let me take you some figures here. How students will be funded in 4 categories. Number 1, this category of vulnerable students who will get 82% of the scholarship. Then help will be 18%. Parents will pay 0 shillings. And then another category of very needy students. That category will get 70% scholarship and 30% of help. Parents will pay 0 shillings. And we have a category of needy students. Remember, vulnerable students, very needy students, and now we're in the category of needy students. Now, the needy students will get 53% of scholarship and 40% help. And the parents will foot 7% of that fee. And finally, less needy students, the last category. And this category will get 38% of scholarship and 55% of help, and the parents will foot 7% of the remaining balance. So this is what the MPs are trying to oppose, that is going to disadvantage other students and actually even force other students not to go to universities, because the model will be per course. So remember, we also had that discussion here on Monday and even on yesterday with my guests, and they said that they need to rethink on how this funding model will be. And Vivian, help has helped a lot of parents and students across the country for so many years.
Definitely has.
If you're parents are going to pay only 40%, 18%. You know, how is it going to affect education from your own perspective?
I mean, clearly HELB has really helped a lot of students. You know, students from less privileged backgrounds have been able to go through schooling simply because, you know, HELB has facilitated that. And if you said it's an increment?
Yes, it actually it will affect the funding model with the different categories: vulnerable students, very needy students, and the percentage of scholarship will vary from 82% up to 38%.
Yeah, I think that will really be a plus for the education system, because, you know, when they categorize this particular students according to who needs it the most, because we've also had cases of students who receive this HELB funding, yet they really didn't need it as much as those who actually needed the funding. So when they are able to categorize the students in that particular way, then it's going to really be a plus for the education system in the country.
That is what the MPs are now protesting about. They're saying that storm in Parliament over Ruto's funding model for universities. I believe in the next couple of weeks it's going to be so heated in the House as far as this is concerned. There's a picture here of President William Ruto yesterday at the Masai Mara, and he's dressed in a full Masai regalia.
Do you have a Masai shuka yourself?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
A red one.
It's a crime to not own one, as a Kenyan, as Regina had mentioned.
It's a crime. I represent. I have it with me, but the only thing I don't have is the walking stick.
And the accessories, you know, the beads.
I told our reporters to come with some. I don't know how it's going to. All right. Okay.
Did you really tell Fadhili? Because Fadhili is forcing issues.
Fadhili is forcing issues. So now, Madhe Wangara bail ruling is set for today. There's been a back and forth between the businessman, the lady who was arrested, and now the alleged real Madhe Wangara, and a businessman linked to drug trafficking and possession of quote-unquote cookies and sweets has been detained for a day pending bail ruling. JKIA Senior Principal Magistrate Njeri Thuku said that she will deliver her ruling today on whether Nancy Enduveria Kigunzu will be detained for 5 days pending investigations. Kigunzu, popularly known as Madhe Wangara, over her alleged drug deals, will be remanded at the ICD police station.
That story is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, who is the real Madhe Wangara, and how did the DCI, you know, get to confuse these two ladies? If you really think about that story, it feels like there's some loopholes in it, because
it throws the detectives and the police service in general to get to the bottom of this matter, to get who is the real Madhe Wangara.
Who is the real Madhe Wangara?
Because the lady who was arrested at first says that she's not the one. And then all of a sudden,
apparently the real one has
alleged Madhe Wangara has now surfaced. So who is who? Who is the real Madhe Wangara?
We might never know. We might never know.
When Madhe wapi?
Missy Madhe really do.
Kenya at risk of another desert locust invasion. We had this, and at the Heart of Climate Summit coming up next week. This is a discussion I'm also going to have with my guest. And Kenya is at risk of being invaded by desert locust in the coming months. Experts have warned. This was revealed yesterday in Gigiri when experts released the 65th Greater Horn of Africa Climate Outlook Forum. And with the theme of the forum was climate services for scenario planning and resilience building. That is another a red alert for us here in the country. Perhaps I could just show how, for those people who cannot see or do not have papers, this is the president in his Masai regalia. At the background, probably if you cannot see, at the background, the wild beasts. So it was a well-composed photo. Picture the president with his, I know there's a term, there's a name for this stick for the Maasais, and he's fully dressed in Maasai regalia, and at the background, at the wild beast migration, the wild beast. You can imagine. It's beautiful.
Such a beautiful photo. It's a really beautiful photo.
All right, what do you have?
There's before I get into what we have on the Daily Nation, there's the story you've mentioned on climate change,
Yes.
and I believe that we the climate change is actually real, and we as a country apparently should be expecting El Nino rains come October. Are you ready for that?
That's the question. In fact, it's here. El Nino rains to begin in October, according to the expert, and it's going to mirror what happened in 1997 El Nino. For those who are not there in 1997, Njoki, the youngest amongst us here, where were you in 1997? There was El Nino.
Yeah.
Njoki is our camera person.
So you need to get your gumboots ready and your sweaters.
She's the smallest and the youngest. Njoki, in 1997, we had El Nino. It was so destructive. And the weatherman says that it's going to probably, whatever is going to happen from October might spill over to December. So it's hot. My advice, please go out there, go to Gikomba, go to Toy, go to any market around you and get those warm things right now. They are cheap.
Yeah, do it now.
Goja next month utaona. Vivian,
good advice. All right, on the front page of the Daily Nation, we have untouchable. Who is this that is very, very untouchable? She seems to be untouchable. That is Judy Chepchirchir, who runs a recruitment agency under investigation for allegedly collecting millions of shillings from hundreds of youth for overseas jobs that never existed. Now, she has snubbed a Senate committee 3 times. She has snubbed appearing before the Senate committee 3 times, and senators are not amused by it. And it begs the question, who exactly is she, and why is she this untouchable that she can just decide she's not going for she's not going to show up to the Senate committee? And you know, the Senate committee has the same powers as the High Court, and for her to be, you know, to not just appear and not have any explanation for it, she seems to be untouchable for sure. If you want to know more about her story, that is Chepchirchir's story, you can get that story on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Now, another story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation is, it says, Fresh Storm Rocks Talks. Now, that is on page 4. President William Ruto and Azimio la Umoja leader Raila Odinga are on a collision course over boundary review, one of the striking points for the National Dialogue Committee. Now, Mr. Odinga wants the boundary issue to be considered by the team, whose technical panel has been given until Friday to harmonize the agenda before talks between Azimio and Ruto's Kenya Kwanza Alliance can formally begin. That story is on page 4, as I had mentioned earlier, of the Daily Nation. And still on the front page, another story is on the Golden Faith. This is a story that Victor has touched on. Faith Kipyegon having bagged Kenya's first gold medal at the athletics championships that are happening in Budapest. Another story is TSC, teachers' salary raise talks collapse. The union yesterday rejected an offer by the Teachers Service Commission for a pay increment of between 2.4% and 9.5%, phasing out the 2.4% and 9.5% should be phased out in 2 years, and they have snubbed it. And they're not in agreement because they are terming that increment to be too little. That story is on the back page of the Daily Nation. Another story that I'm seeing right here on the Daily Nation is leaders split on Ruto's visit to Western. President William Ruto's planned visit to the Western region next week has not only raised expectations among locals, but also exposed the challenge of building the Luhya community. That story is on page 5. And then there's a new sheriff in town, Victor. There seems to be a new sheriff in town. KRA has a new boss.
Yes. I looked at his CV.
What did you see that stood out?
It's a good CV.
It's a good CV.
For lack of a better one, it's a good CV.
All right.
It's here. Harvard man, Watanga, picked for top carry job in new era for urgency. His CV surfaced online, and he's well decorated, and I hope he's up to the task. How about we take a look at the Standard pretty fast?
Okay.
Revealed pay deal teachers turned down. Pay deal teachers turned down. Read the details of Teachers Service Commission salary offer that the unions declined to sign, and which would have been given their members an increment of between 1,076 shillings and slightly above 3,000 shillings. NAT Secretary General Collins Oyu and Kupet Secretary General Akelo Misori yesterday said the talks hit a snag and they will resume talks very soon. House probes 19 billion shillings, 19 billion mega awards to farms and individuals. And here we also have the story of Ababu Namwamba facing the MPs over the the debacle behind the sports ministry in the country. We'll see, because in the past he snubbed the summons before members of parliament. Again, the Star had the picture of president. Again, the Standard also has that picture of the president. And now, this is now the real pose of a Maasai.
Yeah, with one leg up.
Yes, with one leg up and your walking stick. This is now the real pose of a Maasai. Yeah, the Ma Cultural Festival is still happening at the Masai Mara Sekenani Gate. If you can have time to travel there, well and good. And yeah, that's about that. So let's take a break. Vivian, but before that, you talked about Faith Kipyegon bagging the gold for Kenya.
Yes, 1,500 meters. She has bagged the first gold for Kenya.
Director, do we have that? Okay. Tucheze sasa na Faith.
sky is dark, the track is light, and it's going to be lit up even brighter, I'm sure, over these next two track finals. The women's 1,500 metres first, then the men's steeplechase. 12 athletes out there for this women's 1,500 metres. And it is a clash of the titans. It really is. Promises to be one of the races of the championships. Faith Kipyegon this year smashed the world record in Monaco a few weeks ago. The first athlete ever under 350 in the women's 1,500 metres. Sort of akin to Roger Bannister becoming the first athlete to break 4 minutes for the mile. And this lineup is super strong. She's up against Sifan Hassan, the 2019 champion. There's Kira McGeehan of Ireland. She is a European Championship silver medalist. 3:56 last year in Brussels. Kipyegon, world champion. Hull, the best of the Australians. 3 Brits go in this one. Walteji of Ethiopia, great 800 metre runner. And a great competitive record this season, Walteji. Seldom out of the first two. Can she cause an upset here? Can anybody unseat Kipyegon? Twice Olympic champion in Rio 2016, in Tokyo 2021. World champion in 2017 and again in 2022. Between those, she took a silver in Doha. Laura Muir, European champion, the Olympic silver medalist for Great Britain, set a season's best in her semi-final of 3:56. The one semi-final was relatively slow, one semi-final was super fast. But it was a couple of days ago, and they've got a time to recover for this final. Sifan Hassan, who fell, of course, 20 metres before the line in the 10,000 on Saturday. It enabled an Ethiopian 1-2-3, a clean sweep over 25 laps. But she's used to this sort of challenge. She's got the 5,000 to come. back in 2019 in Doha. She took gold at 10,000 metres and at 1,500 metres, and the 1,500 was super fast at 3:51. It's still a unique achievement, that double. Said she was very shocked after her 10,000 fall. She woke up in the morning of her semi-final here and felt very, very sore, but then ran 3:56 in her semi-final. Said she couldn't believe it when she saw the time. Well, the world record by Kipyegon, that is quite remarkable. It will keep her name in the annals of the historical lists forever. She has sealed her immortality in this event. Can she take a third world title and retain her gold from Eugene, Oregon? Used to play football before she was a track runner, Faith Kipyegon. But how do you defeat her? That is the challenge for every one of these athletes, these faces, the other 11 faces. She is fast, she's strong, she's a great tactician, she's in world record shape. Basically, Kipyegon has to make a mistake to lose this race. There's Katie Snowden of Great Britain, has improved hand over fist this year. Wonderful personal best in her semi-final to run 3:56. She's world number 8 now. She's had a faultless build-up too. With an 800 personal best at the London Diamond League, the UK champion. Let's have a look at them. Here's Kira McGeehan, 31 years old now. Silver, as I said, in Munich last year. Bronze back in 2016 in Rotterdam. Amsterdam it was actually. Kipyegon, the Olympic champion. Became the third athlete ever to retain an Olympic 1500 title after Sebastian-Cohen, the Russia's Tatiana Kazankina, when she won gold in Tokyo. She is the world record holder. She's outstanding favourite here. Jessica Hull, 7th in the World Championships last year. Very consistent, the Australian. Hailom of Ethiopia, World Junior Champion last year, World Under-20 Champion. She's just 17 years old. Katie Snowden, UK Champion. She defeated Laura Muir in that race. Sifan Hassan, such a great favourite. She is an interviewer's dream, is Hassan. She comes out with one-liners that are unique and so special. She's a delightful person. But is she tired after that 10,000? Corey McGee has done well. 3rd in US Championships. One and only 2 athletes in this race not to have broken 4 minutes. Laura Muir. Mixed form this season, it has to be said. Looks like she's come right at the right time with that 3:56 in her semi-final. Can she get onto the rostrum here after changing coach earlier on this summer? Nelly Chepchirchir, good 800 so far this year. Fastest in the heats on Saturday with 4 minutes, and then fastest in the semis. Ludovica Cavalli of Italy, one of the other athletes not to have broken 2 minutes in this. Personal best in her semi though, broken 4 minutes I should say, over 1500. Melissa Courtney Bryant is there as well, 3rd in the UK Championships, the Commonwealth bronze medalist back in 2018. Back from a lot of injury problems, has done wonderfully well. Big strides this year with a personal best of 3:58 in Chortsov some 5 weeks ago. And Diriba Welcheji completes the lineup there on the outside. Great competitive record, as I said, Welcheji this year. How will it go then? No pacemakers here. Will it be a dawn? Will somebody take it out? How do you defeat Kipyegon, who roars to the front there on the inside, doesn't really want to get boxed, and looks happy to control it, and the others are letting her after super fast first 100 metres. Laura Muir on the outside there, and it's slowed dramatically after a really fast first 100. That always worries me because the athletes at the front slow it, the others at the back don't know it. They find out a second or two later and run into the back of the slow athletes up front. So they're very tightly bunched, Rob Walker, now as they come towards 300 metres. Kipyegon playing a Pied Piper.
It's understandable, Tim, given that she's broken 3 world records already this year. Unless she makes a mistake, the rest of this world-class field are bidding for a silver and a bronze. It was a blast to get to the front. Now, having done so, Kipyegon has got this under control, pretty steady over the first 400 metres. McGeehan just needs to pay close attention to make sure she doesn't get boxed. And Sifan Hassan in touch with that group, but right at the back. Remember, she won this title in 2019.
Well, that 400 times 65.14, very, very slow for this field. It's way outside 4-minute tempo, and Hassan, I think, would do well to move up. Look at them bunching now. Dangerous, 3 abreast. And it takes a lot of energy when in the middle of that pack. Elbows are banging and you're scared of getting clipped from behind. You're scared of treading. You have to watch the athlete in front of you. As Laura Muir moves up past Welteji now onto the shoulder of the Ethiopian, who is on the shoulder of the leader, Kipyegon. They're allowing Kipyegon to control this, and I think that's a mistake. Somebody should try and disrupt this, because it's slow. If it was 2:08 at 800, that would be 4-minute tempo, and it's going to be way outside that. Hull of Australia in 5th place on the outside, and still Hassan at the back as they come towards 800 metres. 2:11.78. It was a much slower lap, 66.64.
Someone's got to seize their opportunity here. You can tell Laura Muir is itching to get to the front. The Olympic silver medalist, bronze medalist last year. She's had a difficult time on and off the track, but looks like she's back in the groove, and they're now all beginning to get ready to strike. But have they left it too late? Have they played into the hands of this year's outstanding performer?
Well, none of them have tried to do anything to disrupt Kipyegon's race. It's been slow. There's been the opportunity. Welteji in 2nd place on the shoulder of the world record holder. McGeehan running a smart race, the shortest line on the inside, although she's boxed. As they come through the bell, 2:58 at the bell. The pace has picked up a bit the last 300. Now surely Kipyegon will build as they go into the back straight. Others beginning to lose ground. Laura Muir at the back as 300 to go as Hassan now comes into the frame. She's up into 5th. McGeehan going well. Welteji in the slipstream of Kipyegon as the world record holder takes the lead down the back straight and begins to extend that lead and moves away now. Welteji in 2nd. Here comes Hassan. McGeehan in 4th. Kipyegon is well clear though. Chepchirchir back in 5th place is out of this now. In Kipyegon with 5 metres, 6 metres, goes clear. Hassan running for a minor medal here. Welteji producing a wonderful run. She's run 3:55. It's going to be enough for her outside that here, but it's Kipyegon's gold as expected. Welteji the silver for Ethiopia, and Hassan the bronze, and a fighting 4th there. Brilliant running for Kira McGeehan. The winning time is quick, 3:54.87 after a very slow first 800 metres. I said before the race, how do you defeat Faith Kipyegon? Well, that question is still writ large up in the sky above this gorgeous stadium in Budapest, because she has retained her title 3 times a world champion now, and she's done it with ease, great ease.
The greatest 1500 metre runner, male or female, the world has ever seen. She can win it slow, she can win it fast. Brilliant, brilliant silver medal for Welteji. Stepping up from the 800 metres, the event in which she became the world junior champion. Sifan Hassan ran 3:56 on the nose. Bearing in mind how slow it was to start with, these times are extraordinary. And Tim, her time for the last 400 metres, I made that around 56 seconds. They went through in about 2:58, and she's finished in 3:54. That is fantastic running on the last lap. There is no way to beat her.
It's about 56.5 seconds, her last 400. I mean, that is getting to the road.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent? gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC. Sasa wame come up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaoffer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC Station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
Sauti ya Kenya
92.9. Hii ni KBC Radio Taifa.
Kila kitu maishani kina sauti yaleta furaha.
Radio.
Sauti ya elimisha yahimiza yatuleta pamoja. Sauti ya Kenya
Radio Taifa.
And welcome back to the program. It's now 7:39 and time for us to take a look at what we should be expecting. We have got a climate summit happening next month here in Kenya, and a lot of preparation is going behind that. In as far as that is concerned, it's a big event that will be graced by some of the world leaders, hosted by President William Ruto. But right about now, I want us to take a look at this topic that is preceding that particular event that's coming next week. And on set I have got Jacqueline Coyne, who is the Resilience Ambassador, Alliance for Science, with me in studio. Jacqueline, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
First of all, you were installed as an ambassador last week?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be in that docket right now, in that space?
Exciting, but also a challenge. A challenge in the face of the climate vagaries that farmers face, and the climate change issues around the world. And so for me, it is a challenge that I'm bracing up to take up. Yes.
So what does your day-to-day job entail? I'm looking at a situation where you're going to be the champion of proper management of our environment and about climate change in the country or globally speaking. It must be a hard task for you ahead.
Basically, it is connecting to farmers and relaying science that is available to farmers, mentoring farmers and ensuring that they do conservation agriculture, basically, and lead communities towards sustainable agriculture and helping them adapt to the climate changes, of course, that are occurring across the world now. Yes.
And the biggest people who've really suffered the impact of climate change and everything around it, globally speaking, are the farmers.
Yes, of course, the rural communities. Yes.
So how are they going to be benefiting from this particular conference coming up as we begin?
The Climate Summit is going to be an international conference that brings on board heads of states and the international community to dialogue, and we are expecting a lot of agreements and declarations. But as the Alliance for Science, we have come up with a climate action zone.
Yes.
The climate action zone is going to happen on the sidelines of the climate summit to bring local voices and farming communities and rural communities, local governments to discuss and to bring their experiences and actually generate tentative solutions that they think are going to be helpful towards adaptation. And so really the climate action zone is about listening to the voices of the local communities and the local farming communities.
What are some of the impacts of, challenges that we are facing as far as climate change is concerned, from your own overview?
I remember that in 2017 there was a devastating drought, and then it rained a little bit. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic, there was a bit of rain for the long rains. But during the short rains, from the short rains of 2020 to date, we have not received enough rains in Kenya. And so we are now talking about a 4-year-long drought. You have also heard meteorologists talk about El Nino.
Yes.
El Nino is a climate change issue. In today's newspapers, we saw news of locust invasion. It's a phenomenon of climate change. From the 4-year-long drought, we have experienced quite a bit in Kenya. One of them is poverty. There is an increase of poverty, particularly from the rural communities and particularly the farmers. Malnutrition is on the increase. The health experts have talked about increase in malnutrition. We have even experienced school dropouts, particularly from the pastoral communities. The pastoral communities migrate with their livestock, to look for water and to look for pasture. And sometimes school children are involved in the movement, and so they move away from schools. When parents move away with the animals, they leave girls and women unattended, and sometimes even children remain alone in the homesteads. Particularly the girls do not go. And so pregnancies, early pregnancies have been on the increase. And you have also seen, particularly in the north of Kenya, a lot of conflict, insecurity related to climate change, because communities fight over scarce resources in regard to pasture, in regard to water. And so we actually have, in Kenya, we have climate-related IDPs.
Yes.
You have listened to stories around Baringo. You have listened to stories from Pokot, sometimes the northern frontier. And so all these are challenges that are related to climate. So climate is not just about food. It is not just about it is not just about hunger. It goes all the way to education, to health, and including also security.
You're talking about something that perhaps many people could not understand, that migration and conflict to sea, for example, in the north part of Rift Valley, the conflict to sea is as a result of climate change.
Yes.
And so what's the government doing? I mean, Kenya is part of the signatory, and we signed so many international treaties with other international bodies, our international experts as well. But what are we doing as far as this is concerned to mitigate the effects and impacts of climate change as a nation?
I think we have not been able to collect data to properly link the security issues that we have among the pastoral communities to climate change, because I believe it is majorly a result of climate issues.
But is it deliberate now that we don't have the data and the records to that?
Probably not. But sometimes it is an issue of diligence, and an issue of looking keenly at issues. And so I believe that if certain issues such as water, access to water, access to pasture for livestock, will largely reduce the conflicts that we see in the north, including also theft.
Yes.
Some of it is from poverty. We see young people at the age of 14, of 12, the age of 18, being the ones that are armed, and they actually are the ones that steal the animals. So I do not believe that these are the people, because people talk about commercialization of cattle rustling, but those people are actually children. A lot of those people that are armed are actually children. Why are they not in school? Sometimes it is because of poverty. So how do they get to, roam around? And so the thinking of those people who have been observing this keenly is that it is partly from the drought.
Yeah.
It is partly because their own families lost all their livestock to the vagaries of weather, and so then they are pushed to that situation. And so basically we are saying that if climate change issues can be mitigated, then this can reduce.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking at a situation where agriculture is the backbone of a country, and the president is at the forefront in supporting the farmers. At the end of the day, when we talk about agriculture, we talk about science, and talk about green energy, we talk about climate change.
Yes.
So what are some of the challenges that, as an entity, do we, or as a nation, do we face in our effort to combat climate change?
I'll tell you for a fact that we have organizations that have conducted a lot of good research. We have the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization. There's a lot of good information that can turn around the fortunes of agriculture in Kenya. We have a lot of universities that have done it in Kenya. Go to the University of Nairobi. All these universities have done very good research. But the linkage of this to the farming communities is the gap. You will find that our mothers in the village still cultivate the same old way. Conservation agriculture is not being practiced. Drought-tolerant seed are not getting to the villages as much as they should, particularly now that, farming practices should change towards adaptation. And so for me, as the ambassador, the way I look at it is the linkage of science to the farming communities. But also to say that as a country we are still far away from implementing the agreements that we have signed into. The Paris Agreement, for example, the SDGs. The SDGs talked about no poverty, zero hunger. We still largely witness hunger. SDG number 13 talked about climate action. We are still talking about logging. We are talking about, use of charcoal. The rural communities are using firewood and charcoal, for fuel. They still a lot of over-harvesting of sand in the rural communities. And so they remove water from the riverbeds. And so I think we must relook at policy, and we must relook at implementation where policy is present.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've talked about of the SDGs, and we have got a timeline for us to get there. But how are mitigation against climate change aligned to that, the SDGs?
The SDGs are very clear as it is, and governments have policy, but there has been weak linkage, or at least implementation, because if implementation was done, and I want to cite something. On the onset of devolution, I think mandates were divided. there was division of responsibility. There's that is with the national governments, and that got devolved. Among the ones that were devolved, I have not seen the devolved units deal with climate issues, or at least conservation that keenly. And I have also seen that even in the national government departments, I have only seen the regional development authorities deal with conservation to a large extent. Probably also the Water Towers Agency. But the regional development authorities are the ones that are visible, are more proactive on the ground. But as it is, the regional development authorities do not exist in the current Kenyan constitution. So that leaves conservation unmanned in Kenya, because the NEMA is the police, not an implementer. So really there is a gap in regard to who is responsible for environmental conservation and climate action in the Kenyan system as it is.
It's a very simple statement, but what's the answer? It's about you and I.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a you and I, and it's about linkages and coordination. And this is the coordination we are working around, to look at. And even to move towards assisting, including the RDS, the Regional Development Authorities, to be anchored within the law. So that once they are anchored within the law, then they can get support from government and from non-governmental actors, so that, water towers are taken care of, river basins are taken care of, plant cover is taken care of, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. When you talk about that, it boils down to our communities down there, because the civic education it's equally important. And you realize that certain government offices will only be visible in Nairobi, and when you go deep down to the local communities, their presence is quite not being felt. So how will you bridge that gap?
Before we go there, there used to be, when we were growing up, there used to be extension officers.
Very good.
That
Do they still exist?
These agricultural extension officers, were always within communities and training communities.
And there are people who knew every corner of the communities.
And this particular one collapsed on the onset of devolution. I think it was majorly donor funded. And then when devolution came in, there was a bit of a lapse. I know now they are, working around it to try to make it work. In different ways, they have tried to make it work. So this is really now our role, to make sure that information flow. And so I am sure now you have seen where the gap is in regard to the information flow from the institutions to the farming communities. So really training of farmers is what collapsed, and this is what we are focusing on, relaying the information to the farming communities. Yes.
Am I qualified to be an extension officer in my local village?
No, you are not.
Okay.
You have to be an agricultural expert.
Okay. When I look at the second page of the Star newspaper, El Nino rains will begin in October. This, according to the experts. And Madam Jacqueline, let me just get to here. They say that the current condition will mirror what happened in 1997, with destructions happened. For us who can remember what really happened in 1997, the El Nino. There's been a cycle since then until now. The effect of global warming is here with us. The effect of climate change is here with us. The president has been pushing each and every corner, the governors, the senators, the legislators, and even you, action players, to plant more trees. But we are looking at a situation that El Nino is here with us starting next month. Does this really worry you?
Yes, it worries me if people are not prepared. But in the event that people are prepared, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to collect stormwater. It's an opportunity to do enough water pans, to hold, runoff water. an opportunity basically just to prepare. And I know that a number of county governments have done legislation in regard to water collection, and I have seen some that have passed legislation to the effect that every building has to have, water, collection. If this has happened over time, and if many people have considered and done this, then we will not be worried. But we will be worried if we will sit around and wait for this water to drain off. Of course, if we do not have enough bridges, you will expect that people will be carried away. Probably if bridges are not well done. We also have the fear that, from the long drought, that rangelands have lost quite a bit of seed, pasture seed. And so when the floods sweep off, then probably we will lose a lot of pasture seed from the ground. And so probably then, but in preparation, we should have, pasture seed for rangelands. Farmers actually should then rethink about which crops, to plant, because we have crops that easily get destroyed by water. But also to do, furrows and ensure that this expected rain does not, create that amount of damage.
The issue of El Nino is about global warming, but how do we contribute to that? Because at the end of the day, it's our contribution as human beings. How have we contributed to that?
Logging. You have heard that. And I need to thank the High Court for, taking back the lift on the ban on logging. Probably the president meant it well, but it did not come out well, because I think we are a destructive community as a country, and every little leeway we move into, ravage the environment. And so we thank the courts for having restored our forests and to stop the logging. But we also thank the government for the 10, how many trees were those? The expected number of trees that I have seen quite a bit of effort through the Ministry of Environment in planting of trees. But the issue should not be planting of trees. The issue should be growing of trees, because planting a tree is different from growing a tree. And if all of us can focus on growing of the trees, particularly the schools, the institutions, and individual farmers, if they can focus on growing of the trees, then I am sure we can achieve the presidential target.
You talked about farming, and perhaps this is quite close to your heart. And food security, again, in the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, is about food security. So the process of saving our community, saving our environment, mitigating the effects of climate change, how are we coming up with some creative ways to bring up either agriculture, in as far as much as we are going to have the effects of food security being sorted out, but again, on the other hand, the issue of climate change and saving our community and environment is also taken care of.
I've seen a number of innovations. Lately, we see, I think Kenya is one of those countries that have 95% access to the internet. And quite a big number of our youth have access to internet. And I have seen innovation around, getting markets for produce. Farmers face losses all the way from production to markets. And I have seen innovation around access to markets through the internet. If we can move towards that direction, and I have also seen innovation towards, soil testing, and also extension through the internet. I have seen WhatsApp groups being created on specific value chains. And I see groups of lead farmers, coming together and informing themselves and comparing notes and helping each other. I think this is the direction we want to go. And I have seen, groups that are serious enough to get rid of anybody that, is not practicing what they say. And this is the direction we want to go. And we know we can better that, bring in technology into, food production and the systems and value chains from end to end.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's take a break. When you come back, we have a new curriculum here, CBC. How are you entrenching this? Or are you planning to put that in part of CBC so that the future generation, starting from early stages of their formation until they become big people, they have the effect and they know very well that climate change and conserving of our environment is something that we need to be taken care of. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more with Jacqueline Coyne. Stay with us.
Ingo FM fans in Kakamega, are you ready? Ingo FM and Y254 have organized a Meet the Fans tour on 25th and 26th August 2023. On Friday, 25th August, join us at Butere Boys High School, where the Baraza Foundation has organized sports activities including a football match pitting Kakamega Homeboys versus Butere combined. In the evening, join us as we witness the crowning of Mr. and Miss Butere live from Charlie 037 Resort. These events will be covered by Y254 and Ingo FM. On Saturday, 26th August, our team shall visit Noah Yale Children's Home, where we shall donate dignity packs. And the climax of our Kakamega tour will be the launch of Ingo FM Mashabi Club at Bondeni Primary School. Don't miss out. All are welcome.
Oh yes, Massive and Crew, if you love reggae and you're a reggae head, you know the place to be each and every Wednesday.
You gotta show me the future in there. Make me stay when I should not. Are you so strong or is the weakness in me? Why do you come here?
Yeah, remember this is where radio meets TV.
Welcome back. We're still talking about matters climate change, and with me is Honorable Jacqueline Coyne, who is the Resilience Ambassador, Alliance for Science. Alliance for Science. Some of us took humanities and languages, that's where we are here. So let's talk about the issue of how we can incorporate gender in our effort to combat the issues of adaptation, mitigation, and just having the measures put together in the fight against climate change?
I think it's just about focusing on women and youth in conservation and in agriculture. Basically because in the African setting, every day men walk out of the homestead to go and look for, money. But it is the women who are left in the homestead, you know, to tend to the trees at home, to take care of the animals at home. Is it the chicken, is it the cow, and everything else around the home. And therefore, the focus should actually be on the women and the youth, because these are the people who spend most of their time in the homestead. And so it is extension, and it is focus, and it is capacity building and trainings that are focused on women as the custodians and caretakers of the homes. So basically, that is the direction. Yeah.
What is the uptake in our communities when you use gender approach? What is the response like?
Women are very good learners.
What about men?
I will tell you that if you look at, for example, the chama system in Kenya, you know, women are the inventors of the chama system in Kenya. And the chamas have helped women learn quite a bit. Some of them are based on agricultural practices, some of them are table banking. Some of them are, you know, sometimes socio-economic. And through that, they become recipients to new knowledge. The reason why men will not be very good in receiving information is that, you know, they do not walk in parks. Each person, you know, takes his own journey. I don't know where they meet. Probably later in the evenings they do, but I'm not sure that the environment is good for, you know, for trainings and learnings. And so this is the reason why we say that women are better learners, you know, than men.
We are also better learners. We are good learners. I have to support the boy child. We are good learners. But anyway,
probably if we focus on the youth,
it's easy to mobilize women easily, the same way you're saying that chamas, they can come up with chamas and unite pretty fast.
Yes.
To some extent, I think men, we have got so much to do. We have got a lot of things running through our minds.
Agreed, agreed.
So bringing us together and sitting us together and play.
But youth have done a pretty good job at, you know, coming together and caucusing around ideas and, you know, innovations. And so, yes, I think the youth are representing the boy child well.
When you talk about now gender in the youth, I ask you a question on how this can be entrenched in our education system.
Yes. So
that moving forward, it doesn't get us flat-footed in our, you know, formative, in our in future generations, so to speak, that it is completely instilled in a child's formative stage from kindergarten. You know, you have to take care of environment. This is the effect if you don't take care of it. Are you trying, or what are you trying to do so that you can also entrench this in our education system?
One of the advantages of the CBC is that it's very practical in nature. The old system had become theory and it had become exam-oriented. But CBC is good because it is very practical-oriented. The only fear has been whether the parents are going to keep up with the expenses of you know, the practicals. And so getting to support and improve policy around, you know, climate action around it is not difficult. And so we are looking at partnership with the Ministry of Education to see how it is that we can entrench climate action and adaptation within the topics within the curriculum. Yes.
You know, with climate change, it's quite unpredictable. It's nature. But then as a nation, what are we doing to combat or just trying to work on the issue of potential human displacement as far as this is concerned? Because you talked about nomadism, people moving from one place to another and what have you. But that is human displacement because of climate change. How are we doing that, combating that?
Unfortunately, that becomes an activity around relief. And as Alliance for Science, we talk about the shift from relief to resilience. And so the activities therein, the conservation issues, ensuring that if as little rain as we get, is absorbed inside the soil and it does not run off. Some of those interventions is what we are talking about, so that we can, reduce, the effects of climate change. And so really the interventions is really what we insist on, so that then the issues of relief can reduce. Yeah.
In some of these areas that we already have human displacement, are there some of the mitigation factors that has been put in place to reclaim these places that are now, quote unquote, left bare because of the effect?
Yeah, we have quite a number of organizations that are working with government, including, the World Bank, including government and non-governmental agencies, to rehabilitate rangelands and to improve the quality of soils. And I believe that if this is done consistently over time, then we are going to really take back, the devastation, the environmental devastation witnessed from the climate issues. Yeah. Again,
Madam Jacqueline, when I was looking at the papers here, there's another story here that Kenya risk of another desert locust invasion. When we had the desert locust invasion, government spent millions of shillings just to mitigate this and to bring us close to this. But now there's another cycle. We are talking about the issue of climate change. We are talking about the issue of food security. And when you have this, as an alliance for science, are you also focused on seeing something from this desert invasion? And how can it be mitigated?
I think the discussion should be with the regional desert locust control. There's an organization that is mandated to control desert locusts in the region, in East and Central Africa. And so the discussion should be with them, because usually desert locusts are controlled from incubation. If they are not controlled from incubation, then they move. And then they begin, it spreads, because everywhere they land, they leave eggs. And so the discussion should be with the regional body to see what it is they are doing in regard to controlling from incubation, because usually it happens up north at around Sudan or Somalia there, so that then control can be done. But I must say that organizations such as FAO have done a good job at supporting the regional organization, and even interventions when this happens. And so ours is to partner with the organizations that are making interventions to ensure that this does not come to devastate the farmers once more.
In your efforts to save our society and the environment, what are some of the obstacles that you face in an effort to bring some of the measures in adaptation of the climate change to save our community? What are some of the obstacles that you face, or as a nation?
One is that our people have, I don't know whether it is being Kenyan to look for money through whichever means. Because
that is us. There's nothing you can do about it. That is us.
And that attitude in itself is one of the biggest obstacles that there are towards, conservation and climate adaptation.
Yes.
Because we will burn charcoal to make money. We will cut down a tree to sell firewood. We will overharvest sand, to make money, and without making consideration of the long-term effects for this. So some of those, attitudes and behavior is the biggest challenge towards addressing this. And so we will be looking at ways of communicating this, and policy interventions and implementation, and including enforcement to ensure that the environment is not destroyed.
You know, you've talked about behavior and attitude. How do we change this? Because as you said, Kenyans, the moment you give them a small leeway, that's it.
You could see how they took advantage of the president's pronouncement.
Everybody
it's like they were told to pick pangas.
Yes.
They took all the power source and went into the forest. And so that's the greatest challenge in Kenya. We are yet to see what happens in the rest of the global south. But in Kenya, I think it's about the attitude. But it boils down to enforcement of policy.
Yeah.
If one day the government organizations, bestowed upon implementation of policies, take it up seriously, so that, it is deterrent enough, then I am sure that people will keep away from our environment. Yes.
Okay. Generally, where does Kenya stand in the global map in our effort to save our environment, come up with measures in bringing back our environment the way it used to be, the effect of climate change, how we can reverse it? Where is Kenya standing in the global arena?
We will not brag that we are doing well. We may not be doing well. We have a number of, particularly just East African countries, that are doing much better than Kenya. In certain, even East African countries, you will see, things like tree planting deeply entrenched in communities, and you will see them do well. But I would also like to comment counties such as probably Kitui County. Kitui County in the recent past was known to be extremely arid. But now, when you go to Kitui, farmers have, made efforts towards tree planting. And now you drive there, you will not realize that you are in the old Kitui. And so I know of, efforts that have been done towards, conservation, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that calls
and we need to congratulate those, local governments and the county governments and the organizations and communities that are doing something towards, conservation. And I'm talking about Kitui because I visited Kitui 2 months ago, and I found a farmer who has goats. And I found that farmer bandaging his trees so that goats do not nib into, the tree cover.
The tree cover, yes.
And that, I thought that was wonderful. Because how many of us think about the tree?
Yeah.
You only think about your goat probably because you will sell it off and make some money, or probably you milk it and make and drink the milk. But I saw farmers who, had, this care for the trees, such care that you'd find a bandaged tree. And so I know that there are communities that are doing quite a bit, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, we have a long way to go. That calls for public awareness.
Yes.
How much of this are we doing?
Bits and pieces of efforts have been done, but we need to consolidate the partnerships and the efforts and to move forward. Yeah.
What are the partners? What are some of the partners that we have currently?
Quite a number of partners. The Alliance for Science is one of them. FAO, quite a bit. UNEP, quite a number of international communities are in it. But the partnerships have not been solidified and probably, so that there are synergies and to reduce duplications within communities.
We are a political nation. Allow me to bring climate change in a bit of some politics in it.
Yes.
Do we need to include legislators and even have some of the policies presented before the National Assembly, enacted to push and to have some of these things anchored in law in the fight against climate change, on how we can improve our environment, and even how can we include politicians in the fight against climate change?
It's absolutely important very, very important because legislators being lawmakers, we need them on our side. We need for them to actually see it as it is, and so that then they can be able to pass the right policies. But also it doesn't end there. Sometimes we have the best policies, but when it comes to implementation, then that's where the rain beats us.
Yeah.
So I think it's both ways. But the legislators also have a role in regard to, oversight. So we still can use them after, coming up with the proper policies. Then we can use them in oversight to ensure that our environment is protected.
Okay, the Africa Climate Week is soon approaching.
Yes.
And I'm also told that the Alliance will be hosting the Climate Action Zone at the Radisson Blu on the sidelines of the climate change. So what should you expect, or what should we look forward to on that particular day?
We will look forward to a discussion on climate and security, climate justice. We will also be talking about relief to resilience, but this primarily will be about listening to the community voices, listening to the farmer communities, the local voices, so that we do not have an international conference where, the local voices have not been taken into consideration. So the Climate Action Zone is actually a sideline event for the Climate Action Summit. Yeah.
Am I welcomed?
You're quite welcome, and all Kenyans are welcome. We actually have a website for the Climate Action Zone, and everybody is invited to register.
It's free?
Yes.
Registration is free?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That is Jacqueline Cohen, who is the ambassador, and we wish you all the best in your next assignment as the ambassador for Alliance for Science. Of course, we've been talking about matters climate change and what we can do as a nation in our efforts to conserve our environment. Also, just to spread our wings and have the adaptations of climate change taken care of as a nation, much as we are also part of the environment. What are you doing? What are you doing? By the way, are you planting trees?
A lot of them.
A lot of them. What's the progress? You're doing well.
I have done 2,000. In my farm, I have done 2,000 in the last 2 years.
Okay.
And they have grown. The shortest is my height.
Very nice. Okay. Good one. Thank you so much. Asante sana. That was Jacqueline Cohen. Let's take a break. We'll be having more discussion. Remember what Vivian talked about.